That's the tone right there.
There it is.
That makes the hairs on your neck stand up.
Welcome back to Andertons TV.
Hey folks.
I'm with Dagan today, and we are time warping back to the greatest decade of all time, when Dagan could walk down the street looking like he currently does, and no one would bat an eyelid. That's how cool the 80s was.
But I missed the 80s. I was born in 92, so I'm trying my damnedest to bring it back. And this pedalboard right here is doing just that.
Makes me feel old, you saying that.
Sorry.
I'm 20 years older than you.
Well, judging by the YouTube comments, I look about 45, so I'm either going to age gracefully or horribly.
So today's video, Dagan is going to explain why the 80s was the best decade there ever was for guitar music. And we're going to, like, what are the essential pedals and ideally the essential kind of amp and the vibe of guitar that you need for that decade. And I guess, you know, we're talking 80s as in we're talking about Def Leppard and Poison and Guns N' Roses and all those
probably
kind
less
of, like,
Guns N' Roses
less
and
Guns,
more the thing of
hair
like
metal.
Rat and Slayer, not Slayer, Cinderella, Motley Crue,
of
all
course.
those lovely guys. It was an era where guitar playing was fun. People
Yes.
take guitar playing too seriously sometimes.
Yeah. But we're not talking 80s, we're not talking Dire Straits or all of the, you know, lots of the other kind of good bands that were going on, or sort of that sort of later Pink Floyd stuff.
No.
We're talking
Big hair,
the
big
glam, the evolution of that sort of glam metal into hair metal kind of spandex.
Yeah,
And
when
basically Steel Panther.
Yeah, when guitar playing became a sport. Who can play fastest? Who can play loudest? Who's got the biggest rack of, not that kind of biggest rack, who's got the biggest rack of effects? However, that was also a very prominent thing back in the 80s.
When did, Pete and I were talking about this the other day, when did Steel Panther morph from being a parody of the 80s into one of the greatest rock bands currently touring?
Well, did you know they started as a cover band?
No.
Called Metal School.
Right.
And they plays like the Roxy and the Whiskey and stuff. And loads of celebrities used to come to their shows. Like they had Steven Tyler get on stage with them as Metal School and just do Aerosmith songs. I think it's just the fact that they're so good at what they do. Like Satchel, I believe, I might be wrong, he was a guitar teacher at the Guitar Institute.
He took over from Paul Gilbert, apparently.
He did indeed, yeah. So they know this stuff.
Yeah.
But besides the guitar playing, they're so clever with their comedy. Like, you've interviewed Satchel, and that's a brilliant interview.
Yeah.
They know exactly what to say, not to take it too far, but know when to push the boundaries and stuff. And as a comedian, that's hard to do, let alone as a badass guitar player.
Even when I interviewed Satchel, I still felt that it was a parody, and it was the joke. It was a joke,
Yeah.
like just a well-told. Now I just listen to it, and if I tune out to the lyrics, which is still obviously a parody.
Yes.
But if I just tune out to that and just listen to the songs and the guitar, it's just like they would have been one of the biggest hair metal bands.
Without a shadow of a doubt, I wholly agree.
It's phenomenal. Anyway.
Sorry, yes, Steel Panther aside, it was a very serious thing as well back in the 80s.
So my gut feeling is if we ignore this bit in the middle and we just go straight to the amp and straight to the guitar, we couldn't have gone any more 80s if we tried.
Of course not.
So what have we got, Mr. Dagan?
So let's start with the amp. The 800, the obvious evolution from modified plexis and stuff. Jim Marshall and the gang thought they'd bring out their own version of a modded Marshall, which was the 800. Master volume, preamp. There were so many different variants back in the day, like 4-input versions, like SLP style ones, obviously the 2203. It's just synonymous with every important song of that era. 90% of the time it's an 800.
Yeah.
Because it's got the bounce back, it's got the gnarl, it's got the percussiveness, and it laps up pedals.
Yeah.
Like you heard in the intro there.
You know my favourite piece of trivia about JCM 800 as to why it's called JCM 800?
Because it's his Charles, isn't it? Jim
JCM
Charles?
is Jim Charles Marshall. Yeah. The 800 bit is, I think it was Jim's first ever personalised number plate for his big, like he had some stretch
which he's
limo
still got.
thing.
It's still parked outside, isn't it? Yeah.
So I assumed the number plate was because of the amp. But apparently, no, he found the number plate first. And then in order to make the number plate kind of relevant, he decided there would be a series called JCM 800.
Well, you always seem to get wee bits of trivia in the videos we do together. It's good. It's good.
I'm a mind of useless information. And what is the guitar?
The guitar. This is a glorious Glaxon Jinky. This is a glorious Jackson Dinky from the X series. So it's not very expensive, but it looks expensive because back in the 80s, Grover Jackson and his gang of merry men and Charvel and all that crew were customizing and modifying guitars in a way which had never been done before, i.e. making them blue, putting pink pickups in and stuff. So to get a guitar like this back in the 80s would have been thousands, custom shop. Now, 500 quid, reverse headstock.
I need to know whether or not you can help me with some trivia here as well. So, the Dinky. So, I guess the two famous Super Strat Jackson guitars would be the Dinky and the Soloist.
Yes.
Soloist typically the through neck design, Dinky the bolt-on neck. But the Dinky, from what I understand, is a slightly smaller body.
That's what I've been told. Yeah. So, hence the name.
The guy I always think of who famously had a signature guitar with a smaller body was the Nuno Betancourt. All because I think if you're of a slightly sort of vertically challenged nature, obviously if you can have a smaller guitar, it makes you look bigger.
Yeah.
Obviously a problem that you need the opposite.
Of course, yeah.
So,
but they are easy to get around smaller guitars. I do feel like I look daft on stage when I play something like a Dinky on stage, but because of its size, they're just so easy to get around.
Yeah, but it's marginally smaller, isn't it? I mean, it might maybe from sort of here to here slightly narrow, but it's not. It doesn't look like a sort of a 3/4 guitar or anything like that.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy.
Apparently that's why it's called the Dinky, because it was just a little bit smaller. But the blue
easy to
with the
guitar
pink
spin in the
pickups,
80s.
It's so. I instantly think of all those kind of like, Ibanez RG, Paul Gilbert type vibes, but that colour combination with the neon pickups, and it's a great looking guitar. Shark tooth inlays, looks great.
Yeah, the shark tooth reverse headstock with the pink Jackson logo as well.
Yeah.
And of course, this is all linked in the description box down below.
By the way, if you're still with us in this video and you're enjoying it, please like and subscribe, because every new 10,000 subscribers, you might win something. There we are. Now, what we need to do to take our sort of pretty tasty 1980s spaghetti bolognese here to make it into a Gordon Ramsay style 80s spaghetti bolognese. Who was a famous chef from the 80s? It wouldn't be Gordon Ramsay, would it? Gary Rhodes.
Gary Rhodes?
I don't know. Delia Smith. To take our 80s kind of, Dinky into JCM 800 sort of homemade spag bowl and make it into a Delia Smith spag bowl, we need to add some pedals. You, Mr. Dagan, have chosen a selection of, it was originally 8 pedals, but we couldn't really get this is so iconically 80s, it's unbelievable. Yeah. And we might have a go at trying this into the effects loop, but it didn't really
You need to use it as its own for that tone. When it's part of this kind of setup, it didn't sound as good as it does by itself.
So, what have you gone for and why?
Let's
have a listen.
Meat and potatoes pedals for this kind of thing. Like I was saying back in the day, everyone wanted a bigger guitar rack than everyone else. Everyone wanted a pinker guitar, bigger hair, bigger licks, more fingers so you could tap more. But what it boils down to is just essentially these kind of pedals. Some nice overdrives, different flavors of overdrives, some modulations, chorus is a big thing, phase is a big thing. I've got the Mimic, which we'll talk about at the end, because there was a lot of one guitar player bands down there, back in the 80s, but on the records they sounded huge by double tracking to get that live, something like a double A. And I've started, we'll get the compressor in a second, but with the EQ pedal, solely because, like I was saying, everyone was trying to get their own sound back in the day, and EQ is a big part of that. Everyone was messing with EQ pedals in such a unique and subtle way, just to sound unique and stand out a bit.
If you had an amp like an 800 where there's plenty of gain in it already, arguably you wouldn't need either of these. You could do almost everything that these are going to do just by hitting the front of the amplifier with a different kind of EQ kind of mashup.
It was when the Mesa Mark V started coming out as well with the built-in parametric EQ. People were going, oh, this actually does change your tone quite dramatically. Yeah. Let's utilise that. So that's when there was loads of EQ pedals.
I think for me, like, we go from sort of 80s up to here, and then we go hyper 80s down at this end, which is great, but that's why you have to stay tuned. So let's just hear, I'm a relative newbie to using compressor. I would say 2025 for me was the year I converted to just having it on all the time. I don't know with this much overdrive whether we'll hear a huge difference.
Well, I'm not a compressor player,
right?
But because I love 80s stuff, I know compression is a huge part of the clean sound. So I'm only going to turn that on for the clean stuff.
Okay.
So because, again, single channel amplifier with the dirt and whatnot.
I see. So when you roll the volume down, you want to be able to lift.
Obviously that drops in volume ever so slightly. Naturally happens with the volume on your guitar.
And it does slightly thin out a bit, doesn't it? As you,
yes.
So I guess by putting the compressor in, we're hoping to reintroduce...
Bring it back in. And when you add... the 80s is all hell.
I need reverb. Or more reverb. Yes!
Sound of an era right there, dude.
I can't imagine. I just think we just take every effect there is for granted these days. Can you imagine the first time someone would have gone, I wonder what the first reverb pedal even was. I know reverb is a naturally occurring effect, so it's not like reverb is new.
Josh Scott has a great video on the first ever reverb pedal.
Does he?
And the decay is maybe half a second. And everyone was blown away back in the day. Like, oh, this is a spring reverb tank, but built into a pedal. And it was literally half a millisecond.
Can you imagine some of those big White Snake, Def Leppard-y kind of clean parts without it being washed in reverb? You know, and I love that.
It's one of the funnest tones you can have as well when you've got loads of reverb. The amount of times I just sit in my room with the curtains closed, loads of reverb, I'm gonna close my eyes and pretend I'm on stage sound checking. Def Leppard are still in the dressing room. There's no one in the crowd, but I am Phil Collin on stage.
Anyway, right.
Anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted.
So, compressor. There we go.
Yes.
Useful pedal to just sort of lift up that kind of clean sound.
Well, I say I'm not a compressor guy, but it's crucial for that kind of volume thing.
10-band EQ, any band EQ for that matter. I think this is more players should put an EQ on. Well, no, maybe not more players. If your amplifier has gain in it, there's a couple of really solid reasons to use a 10-band EQ, or any band EQ for that matter. Now, most people would probably think about enhancing or increasing, particularly sort of mid-range frequencies, maybe a bit of level. They might see this as that's my solo sound. So maybe let's start with that. But stay tuned, because that's not the only thing that we'd use it for. So I guess if you go through some of the frequencies that are more typically aligned with like a mid-range sound, let's see what happens if we kick this in now. So here's our...
People think they need to buy overdrives to get certain gain tones and like specific, let them fire off specific frequencies. Just do it with an EQ.
I mean, I suppose if you talk about the tube screamer vibe, where you turn the drive all the way down and the volume all the way up, it's really, people are just trying to remove some mid-range, aren't
of course,
they? So why wouldn't you do it with a pedal like that?
And like I mentioned before, everyone in the 80s used an EQ pedal solely because everyone sounded the same with their 800s and their Jacksons and Charvels and Kramers to be unique. Like everyone was trying to mess with stuff on their own way, so their guitar tone stood out more than anyone else's. So EQ pedals were all over the shop. But
I like this, and particularly as well, I think if you know that your guitar or your guitar playing style or your amp has a propensity to feed back on a certain frequency, I think you can dial that in to give you a bit of help to, or dial it out. I mean, who doesn't want feedback? But you know, that singing, forever sustained thing.
Yeah.
However, there's not the only thing that you can do with an EQ pedal, which I thought was pretty clever. Dagan mentioned this while we were setting up.
Yes.
So we've got gain
the amps
already.
Are pretty hot, yeah.
What we don't have in the amplifier, because they just weren't invented in these days, is a clean channel. So,
like I was saying before, we normally get clean channels in the 80s by turning the volume down on your guitar, so... Well, that's finicky to do. You've got to touch your guitar and take away from playing.
So if we go balls to the wall here and then see what happens here. or we have a clean channel, which I can adjust to taste.
I don't even think we need the compressor for this,
No,
though.
you're probably right. And then remove it and we're back. I suppose hypothetically you could have 2 EQ pedals. One set to boost, one set to cut, and then you've got your lead, your rhythm, and your clean sound.
That is really not a bad idea. Yeah, of course.
Anyway.
Who needs the rest of this stuff? Let's just get EQ pedals.
I guess the next 2 pedals are 2 of the most iconic overdrive pedals ever in the history of mankind. So TS9 Tube Screamer, which we have again set to that relatively low drive, relatively high level.
Just to flourish the amp a little bit.
Yeah, and then we've got the Boss Super Overdrive. We've got the Wazza version. There's the standard version as well. It's a bit more affordable.
My first ever guitar pedal, the SD one.
It's probably a lot of people's first ever pedal. So let's have a listen. Take out our stock sound. Tube Screamer, what we're expecting it to do is push the mid-range a bit, push the level a little bit, but tighten up the bass end a bit. So here's the sound.
Just what Tube Screamer does. It's
Again,
great.
Going back to my Delia Smith analogy, it's one of the essential? Ooh, I've combined 2 words there, but I like it. It's one of the essential kind of components of going from that kind of 80s sound to like nailed on 80s sound. It's that next sort of 2%. I really like the tubes. I like the Tube Screamer for this way more than I like the Tube Screamer as just a standard overdrive pedal.
It's a match made in heaven with a TS9 and a 800. It's just that tone.
Yeah. If though the nasally sort of slightly tighter bass end thing just isn't your bag and you want something that's just going to fatten it out and add a bit more level as well, that's probably where the Super Overdrive is different. So if you play for a bit now, and I'll alternate between these 2 and then you can see what they sound like. So.
As much as I love the Tube Screamer, I'm an SD1 guy in this sense. Zakk Wylde was a huge advocate of the SD1. I never used a Tube Screamer back in the day. He was all SD1. That thick, fast loveliness.
I would agree that in this demo, I wonder if the Tube Screamer was just... The bass cut is there for a reason, which when you're just hearing solo guitar, feels like, why would you take the bass away? But in a band context, or particularly perhaps where the amp is much louder, I think that bass roll-off there's an essential quality to it. Anyway, but yes, I agree. I think, in fact, in fairness, we've been using it in its custom mode. If I put it back to its standard mode, this should sound now how the more affordable version sounds.
I think I prefer the standard version over the custom version.
It's more pronounced. The change that happens is more pronounced in the custom version.
To my 80s ear, though, the standard version was just there for me.
Fine, well, that's good for
and
you.
And evidently, I am the expert.
Save yourself £100 then, I think, if you just buy the non-Wazza version. Okay, other than Edward, who else? Is this just here because it's you and you love Edward Van Halen, or did other 80s guitar players use this pedal?
No, I mean, people tried to use this pedal, and it became synonymous with the 80s solely for Eddie. I think he kind of took it and ran with it, and he was so prominent with the Phase 90 that everyone else who used one just ended up trying to sound like Eddie. But you can't not have a Phase 90, especially an old school script one in a setup like this.
You know what I kind of half wished we'd done in the... So again, if you're subscribed to this channel, maybe you've seen this video already, but Dagan was taken us through some Van Halen setups in a previous video, and we had a Marshall Studio Plexi and an EVH 5150. And we didn't have the JCM 800 because Eddie switched away from using Marshall kind of not long after the JCM 800 came out. But I get vibes of the 5150 with the 800. I mean, it's that just tighter, higher gain.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell the progression between ragging the nuts off a Marshall, like Van Halen 1, to modifying Marshalls in the 80s to then the 5153 and the PVs and whatnot. So this naturally just falls nicely in there, but I don't think he was really prominent with a 800, really.
So what happens if we just play with loads of gain and we put this original MXR, by the way, this is a repro of the original one, so it only runs on batteries and it has no LED indicator, so you just have to know whether it's on or off or not. So there's the giveaway.
A bit of this as well. It's just immediately there and apparent, and you can chew the tone. It's just, yeah. If you want to get an 80s guitar tone for lead stuff, you've got to turn
the 5150 has a more open, like more bass end and more headroom, I think, compared. Oh, that might just be because this is the 20-watt JCM 800. I don't know, but it's got plenty of gain though.
It's got plenty of gain, and it's got a nice amount of compression. Like, it's not a crazy squashiness which you get with sometimes when you crank this kind of amplifier, small wattage ones. It's wonderful.
Moving on then.
Yes.
Dimension C.
Dimension C, one of the most important choruses from back in the day. Everyone has a big rack mount version. When this came out, everyone like myself, an 80s fan, just lost their goddamn mind.
I'm so pleased that you know, because I don't really know the lineage of the Dimension C versus the CE2, which is your classic kind of rate and depth thing on there. The Dimension C was that was from a rack unit, was it? And it just kind of had four settings.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, I'm not too clued up on the transition from the pedals to the Dimension C, but I know the Dimension C was a big black rack mount box with simply 4 little white buttons in the corner. But those 4 little white buttons are some of the best chorus sounds anyone's ever heard. So they put it in a pedal format a few years ago now, and it's just wonderful. Oh, the white purple rain's coming out now in the wrong key, but
do you want to go volume full up?
Oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
because that's probably yes. And these just were different chorus sort of settings.
Slightly subtle. I think 3 is my favourite though for the whole 80s thing.
It's very 80s reminiscent, isn't it? If I remember rightly, you can have multiple modes. So I don't know. I don't think you can have more than 2. Can you do 2?
I mean, you can have them all on. That's very 80s.
No, I think you just pick which 2 you like, basically. But I don't know what the sound happens.
Something like that.
Let's move on.
Yes.
For me, probably the most noticeable album sound of the 80s was the double-tracked guitar. You know, that kind of... Certain producers and guitarists just sort of, I think, just entered a fatness of sound that we hadn't heard on albums before.
Which is so funny because there was so much ego in the 80s that the bands just wanted one guitar player because the one guitar player wanted to be the only guitar player in that band and show off. But the tracks themselves on record, because of the double tracking, sounded huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite ironic.
So TC make a pedal called the Mimic, a single signal goes in, and then on the larger mimic you can add they call them dubs, but effectively sort of second and third kind of emulations of a guitar player. And then depending on where you adjust the tightness control, is that second guitar player playing exactly what you're playing in time, in tune, or is that second guitar player playing slightly out of tune and slightly out of time with you, which would be the only way that two guitar players could, like if you were just going to double track, you'd never play it identically.
Which is why there needs to be some movement on the second one, isn't it?
Yeah, so I quite like that separation of just like going, oh yeah, you can actually hear it, and that's what gives it the fatness. And it's just a great way. Personally, I think if I remember rightly on the bigger Mimic, if you use the stereo output, you can actually run your original sound into one amp and your sort of dubbed sound into a second amp. And I think the amp then copes better because it's not seeing like both signals hitting it almost instantaneously. But in this instance, we're just running everything into the JCM 800, and it still sounds great.
Can I quickly add to that as well, with the whole stereo kind of setup? Stereo was such a ridiculously huge thing back in the day to help with the sound and the massiveness of the tones and stuff. I'm not running, because it was my idea to do this kind of setup with the rig and that, I'm not using a stereo setup because not everyone has a stereo setup.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make an 80s pedal board for yourself, this is what I'd go for without having to do the crazy stereo stuff.
Now that your room at home, your video room at home, has got at least 5 or 6 different guitar amplifiers in there, are you starting to shoot more video with dual amp setups just because it sounds better? No.
Never need it. Never felt in it. And I'll enjoy the fact that I want to demo stuff that people will also have in their own house, like a single amp stuff.
I think there's a way. Whenever we do it in here, and forget stereo, I just mean dual mono.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, like
change. It just sounds wicked.
Every guitar player that uses that can use 2 amps does use 2 amps because that kind of nice little mismatch is just perfect. But for me, can't go wrong with one.
Fair enough. Right, let's put the Mimic on. So that'll be the only pedal on this particular portion.
It's weird because you can feel it under your fingers as well. It's odd, but in a very pleasant way. Add a little bit of gain just to make it sizzle a bit.
Over certain, it's weird, isn't it? Although I think, if I remember rightly in the Mimic, the tightness is a fluid thing. So the DSP, so it's not So it's like the second guitar player is sometimes more in time and more in tune with you than other times, just as it goes.
So if I was to...
But what I mean is, over time, you'll hear that second guitar player go slightly more out of time with you than...
Oh, so it changes like in real time.
I don't think it's a fixed thing, if I remember rightly. But so if you play a slightly longer piece, and if you have it turned up, it'll be more obvious.
It's insanely obvious,
Keep playing and I'll just...
Got that slight detune on as well, which was just all over besides regular choruses. All the 80s stuff.
I don't think you need the chorus on as well as the Mimic.
No, definitely not.
But I love that if you had that Def Leppard track that you were playing. I don't think we've got quite the right gain sound with it, but the double track vibe.
This pedal by itself does make the guitar tone quintessentially 80s though. Yeah. In my head, like a slight little double tracking with some detune. There is one final pedal.
As a final pedal. Ah, of course, I forgot it's on the floor, yes.
Hiding away down here. I mean, it's a wah.
It
does what it does.
I don't know that I put the wah down as something I feel is an 80s. Who would have been the big wah guys then? A Slash, I suppose, obviously.
Yeah, the wah was used a lot, but not by sounding like the big names. Like Eddie never really used a wah until the 90s and stuff. But think of all the times you've heard that big. It was used for more dramatic effect and the more subtlety that you've often seen wahs used with.
Well, look,
that's
so
why
just
I talk about
I need like a 20 seconds. You know, just pick out your sort of 3 or 4 pedals and play something 80s, and then we must finish. I just want to see what the Rockman sounds like into the effects return of the of the JCM 800. It might sound terrible, I don't know, but we'll find out shortly. But so, what are you going to go with then here? You going super overdrive instead of the tube screamer?
I'll do a couple with the tube screamer, some with the super overdrive, and
do you want me to boost up anything with the EQ? In fact, why don't we just, if I go back to that first sound, so we'll boost it a bit, and then we'll just try that versus that versus that, and then I guess you have some chorus in there or something like that.
Yeah, of course. Right, so for these tones, I'm going to need a bit more gain, so we'll start with the... Yeah, let's go EQ first. Like we're saying, EQ can double up as an overdrive. Just the tube screamer for the chorus. I think that the EQ did more than...
I might dial it back very slightly at the top end, but yeah, overall...
That sounded great. It does a lot in EQ with this amp.
You have to forgive me because, you know, I've been selling amps for a long time, and I remember the JCM 800 being everything about the 80s when I first started. And then I remember like 25 years of people not really liking it.
That's because people were just... There's so many great amp companies out there doing their own thing, but this is the bread and butter, man.
And then I remember, like about 5 years ago, I can't remember. It might have been when Jamie Slays was in doing a Metallica piece, and he just got a guitar with a tube screamer into a JCM 800.
That's the tone.
And just was like, oh my God, it sounds phenomenal. Why have we been saying for the last 25 years it's too bright and brittle and doesn't say, you know, blah, not enough gain? It's like, it's got everything. Anyway. Right, sorry.
EQ, yeah, what's next?
This one.
You haven't played any Nuno yet or Extreme, so this is a good time to just get there. Because the percussiveness of an 800 just works so well for that's the tone.
Anyway, okay, well, look, so you can have one of these 3. What are you having?
You know what? The EQ.
Okay, and then one of these 3. What are you having?
Let's go double it, because another guitar player we haven't spoke about is Richie Sambora. Oh. And when you rock a double track tone and go... That's just the Richie thing. So I haven't played that in ages, but you get the gist. That double track thing is so good for Bon Jovi.
Do you know what though? I would switch that off for the lead guitar bits.
Yeah.
It's like, it's 100% about a double track rhythm guitar part.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit artificial for the solo stuff. Anyway, look, man.
Anyways, we're trying to make it work, it was good.
So if you could literally leave here with just 2 of your JCM 800 and your Jackson Dinky, you're going with the 10-band EQ and the Mimic, are you, for your sort of ultimate 80s? Or?
I think so, because of the detune effect you can get with the Mimic as well.
Yeah.
That kind of takes some of this, and
Right, well, let's get a bit of Boston going for the last bit then. It is Boston, isn't it? That's his...
Yes, yeah.
Boston. Okay, so this last bit here is the Rockman X100. Now, the Rockman was a little kind of pocket headphone amplifier that was designed in the 80s by the guitar player from Boston, Tom Schultz, I think the guy's name was. And it kind of became a bit of an iconic sound of the 80s, particularly artists like, you know, Phil Collins did use it, you know, for recording. I'm not sure I really like it, but it's a sound of a thing.
It's a specific sound, yeah.
It didn't work into the front of the JCM 800 at all, but hopefully into the effects return of the 800, it'll simulate, you know, more of the way they were using this. Weren't they just using this as a DI kind of
They
sound?
were, yeah, because a lot of people wrote riffs like Phil Collins with his headphone amplifier in his mansion by his pool. And liked the tone so much that when I came to in the studio plugging in his Marshalls, he was like, I prefer the tone of this little chorusy
crazy, isn't it?
Rockman pedal.
In 2025, MXR released it as a pedal, which is what we're using here. And then, so what we're doing is guitar into the Rockman, then into some reverb, then into the effects return of the amplifier. So there's no gain, nothing now coming from the amplifier. And it has 4 modes, and we can add chorus to any of those modes. So I guess
You've got to have the chorus on the whole time.
Yeah, let's start with our iconic. Mode 2. Mode 3.
Get the gain cranked. The gain sounds... I mean, the tone is there. Turn the chorus off a second. Let's just hear the gain. It's a very specific tone, but that is the bloody tone.
It was very popular this year, and I don't know why. I don't really like it.
If you run it into the front of a clean amp like a nice Fender, you do get that tone as well. It's just for the JCM 800, it was a bit gainy.
Anyway, thank you, Dagan, for transporting us back to the 1980s.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, Lee.
Guitars were cooler, amps were louder, and pedals were, you know, just more fun. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks
See
for
you
watching.
later.
See you next time.